This video is a combo demonstration of the behavior that can be expected when logging a user into the domain for the first time, say when a new user account has been created and joined to designated security groups, departmental groups. 3 computers are joined to the domain, Windows 10, Windows 11, and a notebook computer, physical. The first 2 are virtual desktops. We'll be using test accounts. And the first username we will log into the new domain is TMFD test 01. Before going server side, we'll allow that to complete and do its initial login. First, we are deploying printers really quickly for home headquarters office. Folder redirection is taking place. We will go ahead and swing over to the file server and observe what's happening in these folders. We have on the primary storage volume shares work folders. This is the production work folders. The following folder was just created by the desktop OS. That is, the Windows desktop OS is creating subfolders, has created the username top level folder and subfolders. The top level permissions on work folders is sound and appropriate and should not ever need to be modified. And in fact, if it is, will likely cause a break. The permissions on this folder we will look at closely. We'll look at very closely. The everyone permission is necessary on this folder only. This allows the system, on behalf of the user, who is creator owner, upon logging in, to generate their username folder. Now, this special permission allows for creation of the folder only. Does not allow for traversal to folders outside and above after the fact. This is for creation of this folder. This is a special permission and one of the good things that was inherited from the small business server days. Authenticated users is special. This is to avoid some log issues. This folder only, does not allow traversal up and above and outside of it. Management has read access to this folder. We'll look at them. They're labeled to read permissions, not take ownership or change permissions, and not make any changes to user work folders. In this case, is the one exception because of to preserve system integrity of the work folders subfolders. Management is allowed full read access to those, but because ownership changes can occur if management saves a file to a given work folders for a subordinate, we can have issues with that. So these are all the proper permissions that enable automatic creation of folders on the network. Notice these folders have no icon yet. These icons are created by desktop INI, hidden system file that is created by the system. Login is still occurring. Printers are being installed. Now, first time instance for Logon will require a few minutes for installation of the printers. A lot is happening in the background, and once this is finished, subsequent logons will go much quicker. That was reasonable login time for 4 deployed printers in headquarters. We will move to the next one while this is running. Go ahead and get a login started. Test number 2. And before we move on to the third and allow that to happen, we'll come back to the file server. What's occurring here? Those folders have all been generated. Special note, and before commencing my public flogging, stand by for explanations. Downloads are being redirected. However, downloads will not be stored in the regular store. A secondary disk has been created of limited size, 100 gig, and it may be excluded, completely excluded from backup. The folders that are produced on this disk are only downloads and scans. This will allow for users that are not using portables. This only applies to PCs that are attached to the network, that is non-portables, fixed workstations. The ability to roam through the office and not be detached from their scans or their downloads folders as they roam around. They can play musical computers. Their downloads folder will follow them. This disk can be easily cleaned and pruned later time. It is sized total only about 100 gig and is completely outside the regular production store. And again, noted on the disk that this may be excluded completely from backup and will be. README here. Permissions should not be modified on this folder. Now, a few things are happening now while these machines are logging in. Not only, let's first for perspective, back to the top of the tree, we're looking at the primary storage volume here under collapse disk. Shares, work folders is the production folder. This is where new username folders are generated by the system, and you can see the pretty modern icons are created as proper. The desktop INI has been placed by the operating system. It's loaded. Minimize that for a moment. So the production work folders for these two accounts we just logged in has been created. Icon is not present for these yet because login is still in progress. Windows 11 is still installing printers. And I will give explanation for what's happening here with these. Upon first login to a machine, there's a namespace share entitled Store. Under Store, the system will generate a username folder, and folder redirection, the desktop OS creates the downloads folder. Group policy independently creates a scans folder under that resulting username folder. This will be the target for copier scans. We'll go ahead and get the third machine logged in. This is a physical. And allow that to commence. Now, this is a mobile special. What's happening here is WMI is targeting it as a portable machine, so work folders policies have been applied. Drive mappings for this user. The first user account logged into the Windows 10 machine is a member of management. We'll examine the drive mappings. This is a very first time log on for a new user. They're provided the drive mappings as proper. Particularly with Windows 10, I've noticed that the MyScans folder is generated late, meaning it cannot map to that drive immediately, but with a subsequent policy update or restart, we should see the appearance of a folder entitled My Scans. All the departmental shares, data shares for this organization are preempted with TMFD, and this is partly for sorting purposes. Sort stem keeps them clustered and away from system drives, adjacent to them, of course. The MyScans folder is unique and does not have TMFD. They will receive an icon entitled MyScans on the desktop. Now that icon that shortcut is only created when the drive mapping exists. So if we don't see the shortcut exist yet, it's because the folder map drive connection is not there yet, and we now see the appearance of MyScans. Let's examine this. Empty, of course. This is the first test account. We're going to create a file inside scans, test. And let's just go back and look at the file server real quick. First user scans, there's our test file right there. Pretty icon in the downloads folder. Easily distinguishable which user. There's our test. Now, let's look at folder redirection. This again is a virtual desktop and it's subject to UNC path redirection to the namespace shares. Let's look at documents. That redirection has occurred. You look at the underlying location. This is the production namespace share, username, documents. And when the second file server was introduced, station 13, those in proxy, I will create a map and I will have DFS targeting set up so that the station in closest proximity, physical proximity, should be their active file server. Currently we only have one, but here's what's happening there. Documents, all of the user departmental shares will be replicated with file server 1. Exceptions to that will be the archive, the lost and found, and a few other folders. Approximately 350 gigs worth of data will be robocopied between machines when those shares are ready to pre-stage DFS, and when synchronization is healthy while it's on the same subnet nearby, next door neighbor, then we can lift that machine and carry it to station 13. So now we see the desktop shortcut can be produced because its underlying target exists, MyScans. So they get a duplicate name. MyScans, very personal. People love their map drives, their beloved home folders. They often refer to them as their drive, their home folders. Well, they have their MyScans, and the MyScans is a personal drive. Copiers will target this folder. Now, we need not log off. We'll close that dialog. We're still on the first test machine, but we are going to go back to the file server, which is timed out. And I will likely see others time out shortly because sessions were opened almost simultaneously. Look at DFS real quick. We can see we have store is the underlying share, not scans, not documents. Store. This is the sandbox scratch, if you will, again on a disk that needn't be included in backups. This functionality is provided, however, so they can roam while we're not clogging the system with their repeated downloads and other junk, though often, and this is partly being done because downloads files often are of value to the end user. However, they're not always as responsible as they need to be in moving those files out to the documents, desktop, so on and so forth, and often aren't aware that those folders are not backed up. They certainly are aware they get detached from them because they log into a different machine and they do not see their downloads folders. So this remedies that, but caveat will be provided, instructions and in documentation that disclaimers, if you will, to the end users that downloads are not subject to repeat daily backups. They're provided as a courtesy, and anything of value needs to be moved to your own work folders. You can see here is a single file server. Store will be used. Will be a local store in each location, so everyone will be targeting the store in closest geographical proximity and digitally, rather. So even though we're all in the same region, that's the DFS view. We're going to look at that copier. So we've likely timed out. We're going to admin log in. I believe that's all cap. Not all cap, rather, but first character. Indeed, it is. Straight to the address book. We have a test entry here we'll look at. These will be corrected. We'll enter an email address just so that they have it. I will populate this with all their current email addresses, possibly. So this is the SMB folder target. Same name as user account. Look closely. This is the host name. We must use fully qualified domain in all cases when we're specifying the server, and that will be documented. And that is necessary between the functionality between two domains at this time, but going forward will be a best practice nonetheless. SSL is enabled for AD and LDAP lookup on the server because the certificate is local CA is current and because it is a new DC. So the path will simply be store / username scans logical path store, and it's flexible name. It can encompass many things. It is a store. We know it's a scratch pad, so store username scans. Username is scans. This is documented in IT glue. This credential is, and we're going to go ahead and do a test on this target. Now bear in mind the system just created this for us, and the connection is okay. The system created the scans folder for us. We only need to document the path and plug that in, and they're off to the races. Authentication for this account. Similarly, this can be set up on other copiers and other brands. Syntax will vary. Some will require a / beginning, a hard one. So here's an example. Things you learn the hard way. Oh, in this event it works. In many cases, the absence of / and again the paths vary. You may have the actual share you have to specify in a separate field and then path in another field, but it varies greatly. We'll test this without a / leading. Very good, it works according to the test, and we'll have a friendly face down there test that for us shortly, and a scan implementation for everyone will be automatically deployed. There won't be a need to install software across machines and do individual work. Folder will be generated automatically, so when a new user is added to the domain, part of that procedure will simply be adding an address book entry consistent with the others, and there is nothing else to do to implement their scans. If a user scans folder exists, that path will be valid. Those folders will exist if a given user has ever logged into the domain. We are still on the Windows test. We looked at the documents folder and the redirection path here. Let's look at downloads. From the end user's vantage point, it works like any other folder. Their sandboxes are all right there adjacent to one another. They needn't know that the underlying path for downloads is an alternate location. Store. Username downloads. This again will roam. Their downloads will roam with them across the network. Another advantage to this is good, bad, and evil. Say what you will about downloads. Less duplication will occur. They will not be repeating the same downloads on one machine. Well, damn, I just downloaded that and I need to do it again. Susie's on computer 1, I'm on computer 2, so I have to go back to the IRS, find that PDF, download it again, and repeat that process. So this is a nicety for them. And scans is another nicety that ensures that manual intervention is not required at all, less error prone. Technicians don't have to remember much, nor create a shared folder, nor manually create a username on the server. This is generated for them automatically, and it's named uniquely, and it's designed to stick out at them. These are clearly all the corporation, all the departmental shares. These are all shared by various groups. This is management, who has access to all. Management has read-only purview of all these folders here. There's a scan folder. So let's move on already to the Windows 11, see where we're at. We have timed out. All right, we'll look at File Explorer, see what we have. My scans didn't occur yet. That would happen on the next go. We're going to just do a DP update for us. So typical refresh will look like maybe 2, perhaps 3 restarts. Usually only 2 should do it, and partly for consideration of printers, but printers are usually laid down in the initial login session. Got a pretty busy policy processing at the moment. Printers have not been laid down yet. We'll go ahead and throw that aside. We should see those appear shortly. This second member is purposely not a member of management, just accounting. So this is their purview. Of course, here's their scans as appeared for us. They have QuickBooks, and of course they're beyond their permissions on the QuickBooks folder, which is because able to access, of course, because they're members of the appropriate accounts. They, of course, have to have an existing login created by management in said company files. So further secured in that manner. Common, of course, available to everyone. This is the accounting sandbox, departmental share. Again, we saw my scans appear, named uniquely. My scans, very personal, very, very personal scans, my scans. Printers have laid down. We're good to go here. Now, bear in mind, this machine is in the new environment, new domain, where printers are deployed per site. The reason why we only see 2 printers now is as we designed it, we are only needing to see the printers that are in our environment. Printers are deployed on a per site basis by subnet. There is no security group membership that governs which printers appear for a given user, and furthermore, less help desk intervention. If a given computer that's in headquarters has these installed upon logging in, well, if they fold this laptop and subsequently restart and go off to another station, such as 13, and they log in through station 13, the system will keep the printers that were deployed for headquarters and also add the printers that were added for station 15. That's what will occur. Previous printers will not be removed. They will just get the additional. So if a given user only drifts between because of their role and their task, they only drift between headquarters and station 17. They will only ever see headquarters and 17's printers. So this completely automates the printers. One offline Epson, which client was unresponsive to, the workforce 545 has been offline, unreachable since day one. It has been removed from the deployment and deleted. So if they ever respond positively and we get an IP assignment on it and get it alive, we'll see that appear. So everything's working properly here. We have no need to restart. And while it was previously installed, the configuration for Firehouse has been laid down. We'll test it real quick, just since we're in here. Boom, boom. No help desk intervention. Log right in. Connect to the database, and it is grayed out. So there's no possibility of changing it or making error. Go right to it. This is a legacy Firehouse software, of course, not the cloud version. And QuickBooks, of course, laid down is present. Ambulance billings configuration exists on this machine automatically also, but it has not been installed yet. So that's a Windows 11 machine. We are going to dump over to the laptop, see where we're at. Now this is the notebook computer. In Silkscreen for BG Info, I have indication of which domain they're on. This should be helpful with the time refreshes begin. You can see at a glance, has a given machine been migrated yet, or is it still on the old one? At a glance. Look at these folders here. Again, this is a mobile machine, and we have work folders. Work folders, personal folders are redirected here to make it pretty, and so that a given user doesn't see duplicate documents desktop, because that is what occurs. Otherwise, without policy tricks, what we will see here is not only their work folders, but they will also see duplicated documents downloads which are empty and automatically created by the system. But their top-level container from their vantage, we're looking under the hood, is work folders, which has its own in green, which clearly indicates that these are encrypted. Again, the above folders, we just ignore those. We don't want to nuke them, but they serve no purpose for us now in this environment. And this is policy enforced, automatically connected, no issues. We'll look at status of work folders real quick. And boom. On demand is the default, meaning there's no local storage of, even when syncs begin, there is no local storage of those files unless they elect to store them on the computer. So live internet access will be required at all times for them to have recent updates, but they can of course always work with those files. So that is there. And sync over metered connections is optional. If there's a build metered account, then that is relevant. If bandwidth is not a concern and unlimited, then it's just not relevant at all. Okay, this is the first time log on, and we don't have our My Drive yet, but that's not unexpected. We are going to go ahead, of course. It might be due to some vendor underlying software and drivers, but this particular machine takes a particularly long time to log off and apply final policies and go down. On the downside, it may be power firmware related. So we're updating policy here. And we will go now to the DC and see what's happening there, which is timed out. So what's enforcing all of this? What's making all the magic happen? We'll go look at that. Windows were left open on that machine purposely for demo. Get oriented. Get onto that box, which is the new mother for the new domain. Orientation. Okay. There are only two elements that were added to policy to accomplish this. Those two windows are open here. One of those is the all highlighted. The all users object. This is the object that applies the common share and file resources that are common for all users. The very first thing that happens is a drive map is created for their common share. The second thing that happens is they get mapped to what will be the migration drive. So when their computer is moved to the new domain and a first-time login occurs, this will be the consolidation point in which we draw data. So we will see, myself and Tex will see migration drive Y appear on those machines, and which all of their consolidated content is in, documents, desktop, pictures, videos, so on and so forth. And simply a drag and drop move from this resource to their resource folders here. So you'll see that drive letter Y we will simply move those buckets to the new folders. That process will take place quickly because the underlying path is still the same file server. So we're just commanding a move between two folders from the client vantage point. This is a migration drive that will be removed. This is temporary. You can see this is lost and found. Work folders username. This is the current drive that they've been working from during the migration and the consolidation of about 350 gigs worth of scattered data across the network. The final thing that takes place is a mapping to that scans folder. Now it's purposely in its number 3 position to give a chance for that folder to be created first before the mapping is attempted, but we see that one policy update was needed to see it appear on those machines, which has to be acceptable. Here's a special path. Here's the store namespace. We know what underlying server it's on, but again, this is going to be used in multiple sites. So which file server they're hitting depends on which site they are in and which subnet. This presumes that the username folder already exists, and that gets created here in folders. It presumes it already exists, and obviously this is just a mapping, creates a mapping to it. Obviously that mapping will not occur unless folder is already there because of delays and differences in processing. That's why it can require a GP update or a restart to see that take place. This is now remember, the username folder is created by the system because downloads was already created by the OS under store, under username. So the system, the desktop OS, already created the username folder. This object, folders, creates scans beneath the username folder that was created by the desktop OS. Scans is created by policy upon first time logon, and the end user is given creator owner. And scans, his service account, is given special permissions to save to those username folders only, and should also inhibit then from anyone from on the copier scanning right to store without being in a username. So these are confined sandboxes for the users. That's it there. This is this accomplishes the scans and the folder mapping to those. We'll minimize that. This is the policy that is effective for non-portable machines. Non-portables only. Normal redirection takes place. Excuse me. Normal, quote-unquote, normal redirection takes place to the namespace here, as you can see in this field. On the network, there is no caching that takes place. They either have a live connection to it or they have no connection at all. There is no data stored on the desktops, nor need for encrypting it, because it's presumed that if they're disconnected from the network, they have bigger problems than a inaccessible cached file. Downloads is the special redirection point. You can see namespace / store, and you can see from the dialog that the system itself creates the username folder under store. This creates before the folder, and under and a subfolder entitled download. So that works elegantly. We'll go ahead and close these and get away from that session. And one final look back at the file server. I have a bit of transient packet loss here if I feel it. A little bit of lag. So that's been tested and validated. Again, that can be implemented from any copier, no matter which, as long as the syntax is created is appropriate for the UNC path. And what we have here, and we'll go ahead and collapse, we have the new work folders that were generated by the system here, all nice and neatly. Desktop I know I hadn't dropped for those yet by the system. Yeah, often some systems that happens near log off, but it just depends on policy processing time. So, and under shares is all the shared containers in the whole organization under FS. So we'll collapse that. That is the primary. And of course, this volume is backed up in its entirety. Secondary is a sandbox, excluded from backup. We have a store share that would be a solitary share with username folders, each one of them having their downloads and scans. That concludes this demo.